Welcome to Plus One Forward, the podcast powered by the Apocalypse, where we talk about tabletop role-playing games using or inspired by the Apocalypse engine. This episode continues our summer series about Forged in the Dark games. I'm your MC, Rach.
And I'm your co-MC, Rich. Tonight, we are joined by our guest, Jason Ely. Hey, Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason.
Hey, Rich. Hey, Rach. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Jason, let's kick it off. For the Forged in the Dark Summer series, we want to know, what was your first experience with Forged in the Dark games?
I was a pretty early adopter of Blades in the Dark back during the Kickstarter era. Back then, when you backed the Kickstarter, you got a quick start with it. And I played, I think, the second version of the quick start. This was an ancient version of Blades in the Dark back when you had effect ratings and you rolled for your effect after you did your action roll. That's how far back that was. Yeah.
Oh, whoa.
I was immediately taken with it, and I was immediately taken with all the different settings and variants that were going to come out during the Kickstarter campaign. So I got very involved in our dearly departed G+ community for Blades in the Dark, which I still miss to this day.
Oh, man, pour one out for G+.
F for respects.
All right, cool. Well, let's jump on over here and talk about setting, position, and effect.
Setting, position, and effect.
In setting, position, and effect, our guest will spotlight or highlight a particular part of tabletop role-playing gameplay that interests them. And since we're doing our summer series about Forged in the Dark games, we are hoping to highlight specific parts of FITD play. Jason Ely, very excited because the thing that you wanted to talk to us about tonight is the idea of setting itself, not setting, position, and effect, but setting and using setting elements at the table, right?
Yes, something that I think separates Blades in the Dark and some other Forged in the Dark games from their PBTA heritage is that Blades has a pretty fully developed setting. So of course, you guys know typically in PBTA games, there's kind of a light setting layer or settings that are developed at the table. Mm-hmm. And Blades carries that forward to some extent, but also has a book that's full of NPCs and lore and areas. I think that's really cool. You know, I come from the D&D school where I used to pour over my Planescape campaign setting in high school and stuff like that. So I've always loved the campaign setting, and I think it's really cool that Blades is kind of bringing that back into indie gaming.
Absolutely. I was recently having to create a character keeper, which is a Google sheet for online play for Songs for the Dusk, which is from Kavita Puri, and it's a pretty cool game, and I was converting over a Blades in the Dark character keeper someone else had created, so I'm just copy-pasting. I get to the factions, and just importing the factions into the Google Sheet, I'm seeing so much world building and really interesting situations. I completely agree with you that it's a fascinating thing, and it is really far from the PBTA. Hey, we're a genre emulation engine. The setting is what you develop at the table. At most, you get a few options or a Mad Lib kind of approach. So, Jason, what are some things in particular that you find super useful about having this baked-in setting?
One of the things that's most useful about it is the map. So I'm currently playing in a Blades in the Dark campaign. When you're creating your crew, you look at the map of the city and see where you want to live. So we were based out of Night Market, and you look at the map of Night Market, oh, hey, there's a train station here. So now we've gotten really involved in like organizing labor struggles at the train station. You read the section of the book about Night Market, and I think there's a mention of there's a statue to a forgotten god called the Night Mother. Now that has become a big part of our campaign too. It's really cool to have those things that you can hook into and play off of. And of course, like you mentioned, the factions are so flavorful. And I think if you look at the Blades in the Dark fandom, they really love NPCs in the book like the Dimmer Sisters, like Lord Skurlock, the Vampire Lord. In fact, I think John Harper sells Lord Skurlock merchandise on the Blades website.
I'm going to have to go find that.
Jason, how do you deal with players at the table who might not be as invested in the printed setting?
Yeah, that's always it's always kind of a mismatch between players, I think you'll find. Historically, the answer to that, and the bad answer, has been that the GM will handle all of that. What's great about Blades and Forged in the Dark games, twofold, is that you're encouraged to have a lot of freedom in how you express the setting. You know, the canon isn't a settled canon. There's things that you can change if you want. There are questions that are deliberately left unanswered for you to answer. And the other great thing is that it's so much focused on table talk and the specific expression that your table wants to get across, that rather than the GM being like, here's my old sage NPC who's going to explain all the lore of this place, you're more encouraged to have a conversation and to have more buy-in from everyone at the table that I think helps.
So, Jason, speaking about the setting, we got all this stuff codified within the books for Forged in the Dark. How hard-coded is that for games that you run and play in? Do people remix it or change things up? Like, I don't really want this to be in this particular district. Let's change it to so-and-so.
Oh, sure. And, you know, I don't think anyone is being like a settings lawyer and being like, actually, the train station's in this district. So there's always a lot of freedom to explore there. And even with things like the factions and NPCs, in the game I'm playing in now, my friend Michael, who's the GM of it, did something I really love. There's a famous NPC in the setting, Basso Baz, who's the leader of one of the gangs. And in the quick start situation, your crew meets him. So I think everyone who's ever played Blades in the Dark has probably met this NPC and has some idea of what he is. But when he came into our game, instead of portraying him as like this tough gang leader guy, our GM portrayed him as kind of like a Paul Giamatti sad sack type. And even that twist on it just delighted me to no end.
That's really cool.
So, Jason, sometimes on the podcast, we ask designers, are there sort of genres of games that you want to see or themes of games? I really got to ask you, is there a particular setting completely stripped out of everything else that you would love to see featured in a Forged in the Dark game?
Yes, I have been waiting these many years for a proper old Western Forged in the Dark setting. It's something that I've thought about doing that maybe in the future I still might visit. I've always liked Westerns, and when I was a kid, I found a copy of GURPS Old West, the source book, at my local gaming store, and I think that kind of set me on a path for the rest of my gaming life. Yeah, so I would love to see like a proper Deadwood, Red Dead Redemption style Old West, robbing trains, fighting the army, and setting up camp in the wilderness kind of thing.
That sounds pretty fascinating. I know my son, who's a big Red Dead fan, would flip for such a thing.
Every once in a while, it does come up in media, Westerns being a trend. I was just thinking of, I don't think I have seen Western games come. Oh, Haunted West aside, but that's the only one I think I've seen popped up in general recently.
Well, Jason, we have Copperhead County we'll be talking about in a bit. We've already talked about Blades. What are some other setting-full Forged in the Dark games that you would suggest to folks who are interested?
Yeah, I think probably a lot of people are familiar with Band of Blades, which has not only a setting, but a campaign baked into it. Rebel Crown is kind of like that, too. It has a very cool setting and a couple of different campaigns that you can approach in it. And then there's other really cool games. Nocturne by my friend Callum Grace has a really cool sci-fi setting, a space sci-fi setting in it. Hello World by my buddy Charles Simon has kind of a really interesting take on a cyberpunk utopia instead of a dystopia.
Oh, interesting.
Neat. We will stick those in the show notes in case folks are interested. Well, this is really cool, but I know there's some setting baked into this Copperhead County game. So what do you think we jump on over to Progress Clock and talk a bit about it?
Progress Clock.
In Progress Clock, our guests will discuss their Forged in the Dark game they've designed. Jason, Copperhead County, tell us a little bit about it.
Copperhead County is a Southern noir game that's set in a fictional county in East Tennessee in the late 2010s. The subtitle of Copperhead County is Crime and Corruption in the New South, and that boils it down. It's about organized crime, political corruption, personal drama, and the elusive concept of the New South, and whether change is possible in the South, and particularly in my home state of Tennessee.
Just for audience members, including myself, who might not be familiar with the term New South, could you summarize that up briefly?
Yes, so it's a concept that I think first came up when Jimmy Carter was running for president in 1976. He was kind of the candidate of the New South, which is, here's this progressive guy from Georgia. He's not a George Wallace type. He's a liberal Democrat who is heralding this way forward for the South. And then that kind of also came up again when Bill Clinton was running for president in the 90s. And now it's kind of coming up again around Stacey Abrams and all the changes that are happening in Georgia, especially. So it's this concept that keeps coming up, which circles around the fact that the South has a lot of problems. And is the New South truly on the horizon this time? But I think what we find every time is that some things happen and then some things don't. And so that concept of the New South is always ahead of us.
This one cuts close to the bone, Jason. I originally am from East Tennessee. I grew up in East Tennessee. I escaped East Tennessee. So when you tell me about this game, my mind is just swirling with all of the things that I grew up inside and around. That's cool. This is interesting. Scary, but interesting. What are some of the inspirations that you used for Copperhead County?
My big touchstone is Breaking Bad. My elevator pitch for the game would be Breaking Bad in East Tennessee. Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, The Wire is a huge one. Justified, obviously, is a big one. Music is also super important to the game. The game Copperhead County is named after a Steve Earle song, Copperhead Road, which is kind of the initial inspiration for it. The Drive-By Truckers, who are my favorite band, are a huge touchstone too. And then also the tradition of Southern noir novels by authors like Elmore Leonard, Attica Locke, and S.A. Cosby recently are a huge influence too.
What mechanics are different in this game versus Blades in the Dark?
There are a lot of differences, large and small. We approach things like harm and armor and engagement slightly differently. Resistance rolls work a little bit differently. Turf and your crew development works differently. Without getting into all that, I think the biggest changes that people would notice first are that the way crews are set up work differently. So in Blades in the Dark, your crews are oriented mostly around the type of crimes that they commit. So, your smugglers or your hawkers or your thieves. In Copperhead County, there's only 3 crews, and they're more defined as kind of their style and their outlook on the rest of the county. There's the Hellraisers, who are kind of a rebellious, confrontational crew who sets out to disrupt the status quo and the powers that be. There's the Outfit, who's a more traditional organized crime syndicate that is more about keeping quiet and making money and insinuating themselves into the existing power structure. And then there's Blood, a criminal family that has unique abilities and can kind of sit in the middle of the other two and take abilities from either one of them. Another difference is the way that we approach claims. In Blades in the Dark, crews will have a claims map on their sheet that kind of has a preset path for building your criminal empire. In Copperhead County, it's a blank map, and rather than having preset claims, there are guidelines for developing your own schemes. That's a system that I've developed after a lot of playtesting. My approach to claims has gone through probably 5 or 6 different iterations over the dev cycle of the game. And this approach came out of a game I was running where we were doing some really weird stuff. And I felt frustrated that the system wasn't able to reflect the fiction that we were establishing. And so I decided to bring it back and to build a system where you could build the mechanics around the fiction.
That's really interesting. That flexibility, do you find folks pick up and think of schemes, or do people get lost?
That's something that I've worried about. Crews can select a scheme focus during crew creation. That'll point you in the direction of one of 5 broad categories. Whether you want to be a traditional drug dealing crew, whether you want to be a crew that focuses on vice, like gambling and stuff like that, whether you want to be a heist crew, or whether you want to focus on gray power, gray market stuff, and front businesses, stuff like that. People have taken to it. I heard from one person who was doing a campaign that sounded really interesting to me. It was a 2PC crew where they had set up a law practice and we're kind of Better Call Saul style pulling these complex legal schemes. Which I thought that was really cool. And in the campaign where I developed this, we were kind of doing something similar where we were playing a PR agency, but one who would occasionally commit crimes on behalf of their clients. Instead of setting up a vice den that would generate a profit for us, we would do things like establish a profitable relationship with an independent wrestling promotion. And we had a job one time that was, rather than break into somewhere and steal something, the job was set up a successful wrestling event.
That's wild.
Yeah, I definitely could see how that would allow players to explore out what types of crimes and again what types of schemes they want to run, as opposed to, well, these are the type of schemes I see in pieces of media. Do you find it gets a little bit wackadoo, or does it stay pretty grounded?
I would say it stays pretty grounded. The tone of the game definitely tends towards grounding, although I think in a lot of crime fiction, there are two tones that can oscillate between. One is the super grimdark tune, where you're bad people and you're doing bad things for the pure joy of being evil. And the other is kind of the Grand Theft Auto complete slapstick tone. Copperhead County definitely tends towards the grounded, although there are jokes in it and things that I hope are funny. I think that the tone of the game carries forward into people's experiences with it.
Cool. I'm glad to hear that it's less of the GTA. That is very happy making for me. All right, Jason. What is your favorite move or mechanic, and why?
I'm very proud of the trouble system for Copperhead County. It's a system that I've developed straight out of gameplay when I was thinking about how to establish kind of a GMing scaffolding around the game. My secret as a GM is that I'm very bad at using GM mechanics. Like when I MC Apocalypse World, I'm very bad at actually using fronts and things like that. We recently wrapped up a 3-year-long playtest campaign, and I noticed as I was running it that I had all these clocks tracking ongoing plots on the table, clocks that were tracking personal plots for the PCs as well. And so I thought, what if this was the system? And I just tied all this together. So the trouble system is kind of a replacement and expansion of the entanglements in Blades in the Dark, where typically in Blades in the Dark and other Forged in the Dark games, you'll roll for entanglements at the beginning of downtime or after you have a job, and it'll come up with some sort of new complication that'll enter the crew's lives. So the trouble system expands that into separate campaign level clocks for crew trouble, which is trouble that influences the inner workings of your crew, operations that you're running, employees that you have, stuff like that. Police trouble, which is in the involvement by the police, which kind of came out of a frustration I was having with the entanglement system, where I never felt like the police were as involved in things as they should have been. So I wanted to highlight them more. Faction trouble, which is the way that you handle turns that other factions are taking and other factions in the game pursuing their own agendas and objectives. And then my favorite one of all, personal trouble, which is a clock that's tracked per PC, and that tracks their own ongoing drama. And when that fills, you introduce some sort of new problem into their lives or intensify an existing problem that's in the PC's personal life.
Wow. So you can have all these clocks at different rates spinning all the time, and with the personal trouble, those are all individual to the PCs. That's a lot. Does it ever feel like too much to track?
It can be a lot, and I think that is part of the fun. I think it is meant to simulate that element of, a Breaking Bad or an Ozark, where problems just keep piling up on the characters. In that sort of crime fiction, the PCs can never take a break. There's always something new that they've got to deal with. And that's what it's meant to feel like.
Okay.
Part of the intention of there being so many different clocks, too, is that it's a pacing mechanism. The clocks aren't all filling at once. They're filling at different times. So there's not always a huge deluge of things happening to the crew at once, but there is a steady river of problems running through their lives at all times.
Is there something similar to an end-of-season mechanic when those trouble clocks get out of control?
It's a really interesting idea. I've thought about having things like that in previous playtests. I was playing around an idea where, I don't know if you know, at the end of every season of The Wire, there's kind of a song that plays where the montage happens. I had played around with stuff like that, but ultimately I didn't want to introduce any sort of like TV style mechanics to it. I still want to treat the game as a game rather than try to emulate any specific mode of storytelling itself. Something that's interesting about the system too is that you can stack downtimes in Copperhead County. So when you finish downtime, if you don't want to go on into another criminal job, or there's things that you want to keep exploring in downtime, you can just keep going into downtime, but the world doesn't stay static while downtime happens. All those clocks keep developing. That's a way that can kind of calm down the game too, but still keep things pushing forward.
Interesting.
That is the kind of stuff I would love to see in action. I would love to twist your arm to take me back to East Tennessee and run a bit of a demo for us over here on the score of Copperhead County. What do you think, Jason?
Rich, I don't want to traumatize you too much, but I think that's a great idea.
It's time for the score.
For this, I want to do something a little different with this one, where rather than explore an action scene, we're going to explore 2 short downtime scenes that are both an example of those trouble situations that might come up. So we have 2 characters. One is going to face a personal trouble situation. It's a problem in their personal life. And the other is going to face a crew trouble situation where something comes up with the crew and they have to deal with it.
All right, well, I am going to be playing a brick, which is the tough swaggery playbook. A young army vet who had to come back home to take care of his orphaned younger brother, which means that he was also orphaned. But we're not going to talk about that because that's feelings.
And Quan's an adult, unlike his brother who's
right.
13.
Exactly.
I'm going to be playing Olivia, who is a wheeler. Going to type here, I'm the wily politicking playbook. She used to work in Texas politics until being mysteriously exiled to Copperhead County. I have questions. I have a lot of questions about the South right now.
She'll never reveal why. Something of interest, these are both iconic characters who appear on the cover of the book and also then are used as kind of example characters in the characters chapter. All right, who wants to go first?
I am happy to go first.
All right. You two operate, probably with some other PCs as well, but right now we're focusing on Quan and Olivia. You two operate a criminal syndicate, +1 Forward Incorporated.
Yes!
We've been into the big leagues.
Get the nail on the head.
Your setup is quote-unquote security consultants, and sometimes you do legitimate jobs on behalf of other people. Sometimes you might bend or break the law a little bit on their behalf. Quan, as the tough guy, you're used to being in the army. You came home to help take care of your 13-year-old brother, Van. He has been sadly living the life of a latchkey kid. You do your best to take care of him, but he comes home from school. He goes and sits around and watches TV and plays PlayStation until you can get home and take care of him. One day, after finishing your recent criminal business, you come home and you see there's an unfamiliar car parked in your driveway. A real cheap-looking beater. It's got the classic, the doors are painted different colors, and also clearly a different shade from the body of the car. And it's not Van's. He's not old enough to drive, for one thing.
Yeah, he's 13. All he would be able to do is steal a car. Whew, that's not good. Yeah, that car doesn't look like it's anybody from the school. Where are the plates? What state?
They're local plates. They're Tennessee, Copperhead County plates. Could be good or bad, depending.
Okay, I will check my little 38, slip it in my back pocket, head up like there's nothing wrong in the world. Head right inside.
As you get up to the front door, you hear that the TV is blaring super loud. You unlock the front door, open it up. You see Van is sitting on the couch with someone that you recognize, and they appear to be playing a very loud game of NBA 2K, insert year. The guy on the couch with Van is your high school friend Rudy, a dirtbag, is the best way to describe him. You guys lost touch when you went off to join the army. The last you heard, it sounded like he was in jail, probably. But here he is, and he's having a fun time dunking on Van. Van's laughing and having fun like you haven't seen him have lately. And they barely even, pay attention to you as you open the door.
Close the door. Wait a beat. Get the pulse of the situation.
An uncomfortable amount of time passes before they bother to pause the game. Then Van says, "Oh, hey, Quan." And Rudy says, "Bro, what's up? It's been too long."
It's been a while, Rude. Van, did you just let somebody in? I thought we talked about that.
Oh, well, he said that you guys were cool with each other. And Rudy looks back at him and he says, "Oh, no, bro, it's cool, right? I told him we go way back. I didn't tell him about all the stuff we used to get into, but,
Van, you want a Faygo, man? And I'll head across towards the kitchen.
Are you giving Rudy the hint that he should follow you into the kitchen?
Yeah, I am.
All right. He's like, "Hold on, little dude. We'll be back." He follows you into the kitchen with a big grin on his face. He's like, "Bro, it's so good to see you, man. You're looking good. You're looking cut."
Thanks. It's good to see you too, Rude. I heard you went upstate.
Yeah, I had a little bit of trouble with the law, but, nothing that really stuck too much. So now I'm back. I'm back, baby. He leans in close to you. Someone told me that you had a little something going on yourself, man. What's going on with that? Tell your boy about it.
Rude, who told you that? Who's talking about me like that, man?
Oh, man, people know. People around here know what you're into, man. Come on. You gonna try to hide it from me? You know I could be an asset to you.
Maybe. It opens the fridge, and it's like this marigold fridge that is older than he is. And the light on it flickers a couple times. He reaches in, he pulls out a few Fagos, because that's Van's favorite drink. And then he grabs a beer and he hands it over to Rudy. "So, what are you good at, Rude?"
Well, I can still pick a lock. I can still scrap a lick a little bit. I mean, what you need? I mean, maybe you could bring me around. You could introduce me to, your compatriots and whatnot. You vouch for the rootster.
Well, hey, let's not put the cart before the horse, man. We can work something out here. Let me take him a Fago, all right?
All right. Hey, I'm just going to chill here for a second, man. All right.
Yeah. And it's like a Milwaukee's Best. That's the beer that's been handed over.
He seems overjoyed with just that simple pleasure.
Yeah, he enjoys the beast. All right. I hand off the Fago to Van. Hey, man, Rudy and I are cool, but you need to give me a call before you do this kind of stuff. Don't let people in. It's dangerous.
Oh.
I live in the best area.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. We were having fun, though. I mean, you think that he might like hang out some more?
We're going to chat about some old times, but yeah. Yeah, well, maybe we'll go play a little bit in a bit. Yeah, be back in a minute, okay? Okay, Vin?
All right, man.
Head back in. I'm imagining that the, doorway to the kitchen is the, saloon,
yeah.
swingy, half-door thing that my now-dead dad put in because he thought it'd look badass. I see that Rudy's drinking a bit of the Milwaukee's Best, texting somebody. Dude, looking for some work. Is that right, Rudy?
Yeah, man. Whatever you've got going on, count me in. You know I'm good for it.
What I'd like to do then is you can go out with me tomorrow, work on a few things, check your skills, see if we can work you into a job coming up, okay?
Bro, he looks at you like you have wounded his pride. Bro, you're going to make me take a test, man? Come on. Just let me in.
If you're good, then the test is nothing, and it's to show the people who don't know you, people I work with at Plus One Forward Incorporated, that I'm not full of shit.
Man, but you're coming to them like I'm some kind of asshole that you gotta introduce. Come on, man.
I mean, in a way you are, Rudy. I don't know where the hell you've been for a few years. You show up and say that things are cool, but I don't know that. And you want me to give you a job? Listen, I remember high school. We were good, but you were also just a little bit of a fuck-up from time to time, man.
It sounds like we reach a point where you're using an action roll on him.
I think so.
And it sounds like what you might be doing, if you're kind of getting up in his face, you might be growling at him.
Ooh.
That's one of the main 3 social actions that covers this sort of swaggy, badassery intimidation.
I love it.
And as a brick, you also have a special ability called Raw Power, which is that you exude a certain kind of raw animal magnetism that people can't ignore. And so when your physicality would help you impress, attract, or frighten someone, you get a bonus die.
Nice. I will do that thing. I think I'd take a few steps towards it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be rolling 3D then?
Yep.
My best is a 5.
Ouch, but not.
I'm going to say there's a complication here,
Mm-hmm.
which is that he's latched onto you describing your operation as Plus One Forward Incorporated. And maybe that's a little bit more you let slip than was wise around this guy right now.
Oh my God.
Are you cool with letting that stand, or do you want to try to resist it?
I think I let it stand. That doesn't feel like biting stress for it. I mean, if anybody looks me up, they're going to find out the company I work for. So I'll let it go, even though it may end up biting me.
He says, "Look, man. All right, don't trip, man. Okay, all right. I don't want to cause any problems for Plus One Forward Incorporated. All right, man. Hey, I'm gonna get out of here, but I'll see you tomorrow at Plus One Forward Incorporated, right?"
Yeah. Come around here around 8. And if you're late, then I know something about you don't want me to know, right?
Hey, man, all you're going to know is that Plus One Forward Incorporated has its new star employee, man.
Oh, man, I used to like the name of my company, the way you keep saying it.
Loses its power.
He takes his beer, he pounds the rest of the beer, leaves it on your counter to leave behind a nice ring underneath it after he's gone. And he's gonna vamoose out of here.
Oh, that's good.
All right, what's gonna happen with Quan and Rudy? Nothing bad, I hope. I'm sure Rudy is gonna be nothing but an asset to Quan going forward.
Nothing but an asset. Yes, I'm very excited about the future new employee for Plus One Forward Incorporated.
Meanwhile, across town, Olivia, while you've been kind of running things with Plus One Forward, it's been important to diversify your assets. And so something that you've helped set up for the organization is that you helped take over a franchise of a local regional fast food chain called Zip Burger. If you're familiar with Southern fast food, you can kind of think of it as like a cross between a Crystal and a Cookout. Something of that nature.
I actually know those references, so we're good.
So Olivia, you're heading into Zip Burger just to check on how things are going. And you get inside, it's a typical afternoon. It's pretty busy. One of the teens who works there, your shift supervisor, let's call him Mark. He motions over to you. He sees you come in. And he kind of takes you aside. He's like, Olivia, there's like a guy waiting in your office.
A guy? You just let a random guy into my office?
Well, he said he was from corporate and he had like a lanyard. Oh, should I not have done that? Oh.
Did you look at the identification on the lanyard?
Well, it had his name and it had like the Zip Burger logo on it. I mean, I swear it seemed legit. But hey, do you need me to go throw him out? I'll do it. Like, he's obviously kind of terrified of you, and now terrified that he's gotten on your bad side.
I want to kind of side-eye and see if I could see into my office at all and catch a glimpse of this man who walked in and said he was here from corporate.
Yeah, your office door is open. He's sitting there in kind of the chair that faces your desk, and he just seems from the back like a generic business haircut man wearing a white dress shirt.
And do I recognize this man at all, or no? It's just sort of, he's like a generic guy. I've encountered this type of businessman throughout my professional career.
You know what? That sounds like a great opportunity to gather info. And I think what you are probably doing is you're reckoning, which is the action that covers using your noggin to solve problems. So if you want to reckon who he is.
I would love to reckon who he is. I've got 2 points in reckoning, so I rolled very poorly. My highest is a 3.
This could be literally any white man in Copperhead County, as far as you know.
Fair. Well, I'm going to enter my office as professionally as I possibly can after shooing Mark away, because it is really hard in this county to hire good help, especially coming out of the teenager pool, and politely ask what business he has with us today.
What's your office like? Does your office have any personal decorations up in it, or is it like completely Spartan with no signal that anyone works out of here at all?
I think there's some personal effects, but they're mostly, I want to lead into the fact that she's an expat, so there might be a couple of little silly pieces of iconography from Texas that are discreetly placed in the office. But
I would like to insert a Joey Gallo bobblehead. It's a baseball player. He's from the Texas Rangers. It's very Texas.
I accept this. It's whimsy.
You know what? He sees it. You see him kind of looking at the bobblehead, and he says, "Rangers fan, huh?" Oh, I'm sorry. Name's Roger Honeycutt, Zip Burger Corporate. I'm the regional manager here. Whenever we have a new franchisee come on board, I'd like to come by and say hello. Take a look at the financials. Make sure everything's on the level.
Why didn't you email me in advance?
You seem to have caught him a little bit. He recovers a little bit and says, I thought I did. I thought I spoke to your assistant, maybe. Maybe something got lost in translation here.
I mean, if you had contacted me in advance, I could have gotten some of our trademark sovereign hospitality ready for you. And I mean, you've caught me a little bit off guard. So what particular questions do you have about our franchise?
Oh, well, I'd like to get to know our franchisees. And like I said, I'd love to take a look at those financials. So if you could pull up your quarterlies, your EBITDAs, anything like that, I'd just love to make sure that everything's A-okay.
I'm trying to get a good read on his mannerisms. I do have a skill called Never Bullshit a Bullshitter,
Yep.
which I think applies in this situation, which allows me to suss out a little bit more information if someone's trying to get one past me.
So when you gather information by talking with or observing someone, you get increased details about their truthfulness, motives, or next moves. You can go ahead and gather information with one of your actions. Reckon will be fine. Connect is one of the main social actions that kind of covers straight ahead talking and negotiating, getting to know someone, so that could be a valid approach too.
I am being relatively straightforward and honest right now, so let's try to connect with him. Highest is a 6.
So normally that would be excellent detail. With your special ability, it's superlative detail. This guy, I mean, you should have known as soon as you asked him why he didn't try to set up a meeting with you, and he gave you that weak tea answer. This guy doesn't work for Zipburger Corporate. You know who he works for, but it ain't the bigwigs up at Zipburger. And the way he keeps leaning on the financials, he really wants to get a look at your books, which he seems likely that he suspects are not entirely on the level.
Okay, so I am going to, at this point, I imagine, close the office door, take a seat at the desk, and be like, if you don't mind me asking, Roger, can you give me a contact number for your supervisor? I just want to make sure that they know that you arrived here safely. There was some pretty bad weather here over the last few days.
Would this fall into the realm of an action roll where are you trying to get him to back off or trying to intimidate him maybe into scurrying away or into giving up something?
I'm trying to knock him more off kilter than like tell me who you're working with rather than trying to make him break.
Mm-hmm. So the main three social actions, which Olivia is proficient in all of them, are growl, as Quan did before, connect, to connect with someone on the level, or hustle, which is kind of to fast talk or misdirect someone. And the great news about Olivia is that you have another special ability called Mouth of the South, which is when you are trying to influence or sway somebody when using your signature style. In Olivia's case, it is being cool and dignified, which I think she is being. Then she gets a bonus die.
Oh, and definitely going with growl because I think there's no sweet talking going in here. It's not necessarily projecting menace, but I'm projecting a presence to make an impact on this guy.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that's going to be 2Ds.
My dice are cursed today.
Oh, no.
So that's a 2. Could I push myself? Can I get assistance?
You know what? Sure. Let's let you take a couple of stress to push yourself on that one.
Quan, I need help.
This is Quan's wheelhouse. Too bad he's dealing with Rudy over across town right now.
We're playing NBA 2K, whatever.
Yeah, Van needed someone to step in and take over.
So to push myself to really project that awe, I've got a 5 on that die.
Okay. Still pretty successful, not 100% successful. I'm going to say the consequence is that you have reduced effect in your goal. You were trying to knock him off kilter. He seems hesitant, but not completely ready to give up the ghost. Do you want to try to resist that? Or are you willing to move forward under those terms?
I think I'm going to resist.
Okay. So in Copperhead County, we handle resistance rolls a little bit differently. We use the hardcore resistance variant from Blades in the Dark, which is that you roll all of your dice and you take a resistance equal to the lowest die number that you roll, which results in kind of a steadier stress burn across the lifetime of a character.
Oh boy, 3 dice, lowest one, eh?
Yeah, so it's the opposite of an action roll, essentially.
That would be a 2.
All right. It's 2 stress. That's nothing. All right. So actually you do knock him completely off. You see him kind of blanch. You see him in real time recognize that he has overplayed a very weak hand. And he says, you know what, Miss Olivia, I don't mean to get us off on the wrong foot here. I apologize for not setting this up properly. Why don't you let me just get out of your hair and I'll have my assistant contact your assistant and we can set up a more formal meet later on this week. He takes 3 steps towards the door.
Yeah, I'm going to let him take those steps to the door and, politely thank him for his time and watch him very carefully as he leaves. Has he left?
He kind of lowers his face as he leaves. As he's heading out, you see Mark, the teen shift supervisor, give him a look like, yeah, don't mess with this Zipburger franchise. He scurries out the door towards what just looks like a generic old model sedan. Definitely not the sort of classy company car you would expect the regional manager of Zipburger to be driving. And he takes off.
That car's going to become important because I'm definitely going to get the make and model in the plates and then get someone to trace it.
Yeah, someone was sniffing around, but you caught him.
For now.
For now.
Wow. Jason, that was a couple of dynamite downtime scenes, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
That was really, really awesome. Thank you for giving us a chance to play some Copperhead County.
Thank you for playing 2 such excellent roles tonight.
Not counting my dice rolls. Woof! Jason, if our listeners want to follow more of your work online, where can they find you?
They can find me at my itch page, which is guitartown.itch.io. That is the exclusive place where Copperhead County is available right now. They can also follow me on Twitter at Jason_GTRtown.
Thanks again, Jason, for coming on Plus One Forward and helping us learn a bit more about Forged in the Dark games.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Rach.
Thank you.
Plus One Forward is a production of the Gauntlet community, Richard Rogers and Rach Shelkey. You can find us at gauntlet-rpg.com or follow us on Twitter at @+1FWD. If you would like to support our show, visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/gauntlet. The games mentioned on this show use the Apocalypse engine, which is a creation of Vincent and Magay Baker. The music for Plus One Forward is from the Savage Aural Hotbed CD Gomi Daiko. The songs used are Gomi Daiko, Metal Version, and Drowning Attitude. You can find more amazing tunes by Savage Aural Hotbed on their website, www.savageauralhotbed.com.
The next Gauntlet Community Open Gaming will be happening the weekend of October 14th through the 17th of 2021. GCOG is the Gauntlet Gaming Community's free online tabletop RPG convention. Over the weekend, we'll be offering more than 24 sessions with games like Brindlewood Bay, Monster of the Week, Hearts of Wulin, Star Wars Swoop Gangs, and more. All sessions are run with a set of safety tools and follow the Gauntlet Code of Conduct. Registration opens Monday, September 20th at 12 o'clock noon U.S. Eastern Time. We created the con to help new players get used to online play, showcase indie games, and introduce folks to our community. If you want to check out the event listings, go to bit.ly/GCOG events, all smushed together. For more detail on registration and procedures, go to bit.ly/gauntlet-community. We hope we'll see you there.